welcome back to The Explainer. So right now, summer 2026, we are watching a massive, completely systemic shift just violently rip through the global tech and AI sectors. We're talking about a fundamental redesign of how software is bought, built, and powered.
$1 trillion. That's a 1 with 12 zeros. That is the staggering amount of value that just got wiped out in this historic sell-off of software stocks. And look, this isn't some temporary market correction, right? It's a complete structural upheaval. The traditional software industry is facing an absolute existential crisis, and the money isn't just vanishing, it's violently changing directions.
Okay, let's dive into this. The core catalyst here, and this quote really hits the nail on the head, is the rise of autonomous AI coding agents. We are literally in the middle of a SaaS apocalypse. Think about it. For a decade, the tech business model was super predictable. You build a platform and you charge companies a monthly fee for every single employee who uses it. But these AI agents, they're completely breaking that traditional setup.
The entire paradigm has completely flipped. Under the old model, a company would just buy hundreds of generic software seats. Today, why on earth would you pay exorbitant monthly fees for generic off-the-shelf software when you can just use AI coding agents to easily and cheaply build bespoke, custom solutions tailored exactly to your needs? The whole per-seat pricing model is just collapsing.
And this brings us to a highly vulnerable category of startups, the thin wrapper. A thin wrapper is essentially this superficial software layer built on top of generic AI models. It completely lacks deep workflow integration or any kind of proprietary data moat. Venture capitalists, they are aggressively pulling funding from these startups right now. Because the barriers to entry are just incredibly low, these surface-level automation tools are basically defenseless against custom-built AI solutions.
But here's the thing. The capital isn't disappearing, it's just moving. We're officially entering what analysts are calling the industrial phase of AI. The whole experimental era, yeah, that's over. Now, corporate buyers and private sponsors are prioritizing massive scale, strategic market positioning, and heavy physical infrastructure. To build the future, you need absolute mountains of compute. And well, that requires unprecedented funding.
And you can really see how this builds, because the historic capital being mobilized right now perfectly captures the sheer scale of this industrial phase. In March 2026, OpenAI had an $852 billion private valuation before filing for an IPO. Then, June 2nd, Alphabet closed an $84.75 billion equity raise, literally the largest in corporate history, just to fund next-gen computing infrastructure. And then, boom, SpaceX launched a massive $75 billion IPO. The scale of this money movement is unlike anything we have ever seen.
And get this. That SpaceX IPO is projected to value the conglomerate at an astounding $1.77 trillion. But the reason they're commanding this valuation isn't just rockets anymore. SpaceX is rapidly solidifying its position as a major AI infrastructure and neocloud provider. They're planning to use this massive influx of capital to expand GPU compute offerings and actually develop space-based AI data centers to power their XAI models. Space-based data centers. Alongside all these massive capital raises, we are witnessing a colossal M&A megawave. As analysts have pointed out, a more predictable regulatory environment, combined with years of pent-up demand, have just unlocked a wave of large-cap deals. In this new industrial phase of AI, larger companies naturally command higher valuation multiples and wider margins, so they're weaponizing that massive scale to buy up strategic assets and, quite frankly, crush smaller competitors. And the numbers brilliantly illustrate exactly what we're talking about. The leading companies have significantly increased their appetite for multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. Corporate participation in massive transactions, meaning deals valued at over $5 billion, has jumped from 17% back in 2020 to 25% today in 2026. The central question for tech leaders right now isn't really whether to pursue M&A anymore. It's just a matter of how bold they're willing to be.
So, what does this all mean? Where exactly is all this M&A money flowing? Well, it's precision betting. Capital is flying far away from generic sauce and pouring directly into semiconductor design, data center energy management, edge computing platforms, fiber infrastructure, and vertical software that actually possesses a proprietary data moat. They're buying the foundational picks and shovels required to keep the AI industrial machine running.
Now, a major reason for this highly specific hardware investment is a systemic architectural shift in how AI actually operates. We're moving away from purely centralized cloud computing and heading toward localized edge silicon architectures. So instead of sending every single prompt up to a massive distant data center, the industry is fundamentally redesigning physical computing. They want multi-step, autonomous AI agents running locally directly on your consumer and enterprise devices.
To really ground this concept, just look at the real-world examples hitting the market as we speak. Apple just announced their AFM3 models, which are specifically designed to run dense, sparse, multimodal AI right on your iPhone. Crazy, right? Meanwhile, Ferrari partnered with IBM to deploy AI-driven fan engagement apps straight to users' hands. And OpenAI? They just acquired the startup Anna to allow their coding agents to run persistently. The AI is moving directly to the edge, and it's happening incredibly fast.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the severe physical bottleneck it's creating. By the end of 2026, high-bandwidth memory, which is the absolute lifeblood required for these AI data centers, is expected to consume a staggering 20% of total global silicon wafer capacity. That is a massive jump from just 2% previously. The AI hardware appetite is basically eating the global silicon supply chain alive.
And the immediate real-world consequence of this hardware bottleneck? It is severely squeezing everyday consumer electronics. Because AI memory is monopolizing all the factory space, the production of standard memory used in everyday consumer devices is dropping off a cliff. This is driving up prices significantly. And right now, it's having a devastating, compounding impact on the supply of sub-$100 smartphones, which, as we know, are absolutely critical lifelines in markets across Africa and South Asia.
And we have to talk about the immense socioeconomic tension this systemic shift is causing. Tech companies are increasingly citing AI as the primary reason for mass layoffs, even as those very same companies post record profits. This dynamic is widely being described as a social powder keg. You have tens of thousands of workers facing a really difficult economic climate, while a very small, highly concentrated cohort of AI insiders are amassing unprecedented, historic wealth.
But as the AI industrial phase completely reshapes the present, the groundwork is already being laid for the next massive leap. $1 billion. That is the proposed federal award from the U.S. government to IBM, drawn directly from the CHIPS and Science Act, to build a dedicated quantum wafer manufacturing foundry right here in the United States.
And IBM, they're definitely not stopping there. They're actually matching this federal support with a massive $10 billion private investment over the next 5 years. Their end goal is to deliver Starling by 2029, which would be the world's first large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computer operating with 200 logical qubits. So, this $1 trillion AI realignment we're analyzing today, it is quite literally funding the hardware and infrastructure that will trigger the quantum computing revolution tomorrow.
So, the crucial point is this: the landscape of technology has permanently changed. The generic software era is over, totally replaced by industrial-scale AI infrastructure, edge computing, and, very soon, quantum processing. As this massive wealth transfer continues, ask yourself, in your own investments, your career, and your business, are you just building a thin wrapper, or are you building an undeniable foundation? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.